Hi, I'm Amy Romeo and welcome to the 12 Days of Christmas Crafts event where I'm sharing a brand new holiday faux leather craft for your Cricut every day for 12 days. Today's project is these really pretty personalized snowflake ornaments, and I have two different designs for you, and I'll be showing you how to personalize the text in this center area. I'll let you know how to get the SVGs in just a moment, but first let's talk quickly about the tools and materials we'll be using. I'll be cutting this project with my Cricut Maker, but you can use any of the current Cricut machines, including the Cricut Joy, because they all cut faux leather with the standard fine point blade that's included with your machine when you purchased it. Now the faux leather that I'm using happens to be white on a roll, but you can use faux leather on sheets, you can use colored faux leather or prints or patterns. It's completely up to you, and I'll leave links to all of my supplies that I used for this project for you. The heat transfer vinyl that I'm using, Caesar Easy Weed, and also some Caesar Glitter heat transfer vinyl, but you can use the iron-on of your choice. You can also use permanent vinyl for this project if you prefer. Now the way these are constructed, there's a front layer, the white layer of faux leather, and then there's also a back layer, and they're glued together. And I glued those just with some fabric glue. Now if you didn't want to glue to back, you don't have to, that's optional, but it is nice to add some stiffness and also give you a place to, let's say, add the date or add some more custom text. You'll also need some blue painter's tape. I'll be cutting the faux leather using the purple strong grip mat, but if you have a really good and sticky green Cricut mat, you can use that too. I did want to mention this is a great cardstock project. So if you didn't want to use faux leather for your base pieces, you could definitely cut them from cardstock instead. I recommend cutting 2 layers and gluing them together to create that thicker snowflake design. Finally, we'll be adding a little ribbon detail to our little ornament so we can hang it. Okay, let me show you how to get the SVG file for this project, and then we'll hop into Design Space and I'll show you how you can personalize these snowflake ornaments. To get the SVG files for this project, visit amyromeo.com/Christmas24, or you could upgrade to the event VIP pass where you'll get instant access to all the event projects and tutorials, plus a workbook, some bonuses, and more. Starting with a blank canvas in Cricut Design Space, you'll click on Upload and then Upload Image, and you'll browse to where you've downloaded and unzipped the SVG file for this project. Click on it to select it and then click Open. You'll see a preview of the shapes, click Continue, and then Upload. And that's going to bring the snowflake shapes onto your canvas. Let me drag them up just a little bit. So you can see that there are 2 different snowflake versions. They both have the same opening for your text, and they both have a front layer, this light blue layer. That's the layer that we'll cut from faux leather, and they both have a back layer. The back layer is optional. You can delete it if you don't want to use that layer. You'll see that I also have a little paw print for you and a little heart, and those can be used either if you were making a name for a pet and you wanted to include a little paw print, you could, or you could include a heart. They're also good filler shapes if your name is a little bit small and you want to fill up this gap with a cute little design element. So the first thing I'm going to do is ungroup my snowflakes so that I can delete one of them off of the canvas, because we'll just be cutting one of them today. And to create the text for this inside area, there are 2 different ways you can do it. We can either have a row of text that sort of floats in this open area, or we can have a row of text that overlaps just slightly, this medium blue layer on the top and the bottom, and then this top snowflake layer cuts and the name is part of the snowflake design. So I'll show you both ways to do it. So the first thing we'll want to do is click on the text tool, and some default text is going to pop up. That's the Cricut Sans font that everyone has on their machine. So if you're not comfortable playing around with fonts or downloading fonts, you can absolutely do this project just with Cricut Sans. Now if you have Cricut Access, then you also have extra fonts. If you like to go on places that are free, like I do, like defont.com, and download fonts, then you might have fonts already downloaded on your system. Just keep in mind that the length of your name that you're trying to fit on your snowflake, you may need to play around with some different fonts to be able to get the name to fit nicely in that little space. Let me show you what I mean. So the first thing I'm going to do is type my name in the Cricut Sans font. And I find that these ornaments look really good when the names are in uppercase letters because they connect to the top and the bottom of the snowflake, but that's totally up to you. So all I'm doing is dragging my name a little smaller and sort of lining it up so that I have a similar gap between the top and the bottom. And it looks like my letters are floating. If I wanted to, I could click up here on letter space just to give myself a little bit of room. Have those letters space out a tiny bit to the edge of the ornament there. Then if I wanted to, I could click on the name, click on the color, and then just choose that medium blue color. Then click on the name. I'm holding the Shift key on my computer, and I'm also clicking on that same color snowflake. And then you can go down here and click on Combine and Weld. And that is going to make this all one layer now that is going to cut together. Isn't that cool? Okay, so that's if you wanted your name to float. Keep in mind, as I mentioned, you might need to make your name float if the name is longer, or you might be able to stretch your name out and connect it to the top and bottom if your name is shorter. So let me show you what that looks like. Okay, so I'm going to delete my name here and start over. So I'll click on the text tool. My default text pops up again. I'm going to type the same name, but this time I'm going to choose a font that I have on my system. So I'll click here in the font selector. If you're on the Cricut tab, you'll see either your access fonts or fonts that you've purchased from Cricut. System fonts will be all the fonts that are on your device. So one that I really like for these ornaments is called Impact, and I'll leave a link to it for you. Just click on it to select it and then close this out. And now my name has transformed into that Impact font. So I'm just dragging it over here. And what I want to do is drag this smaller. And ideally, I would like the top of the letters and the bottom of the letters to touch. So one way that I can do that is by going up here and clicking on the size little padlock here. Click to unlock that so that I can only increase the height of the letters but not the width. See how I did that? Let me go back again. So I'm clicking on my name. Up here, I have to unlock this because I only want the height to change. I don't want the width to change. So you have to unlock that to only change one element. And I'm just going to click up on that height option there. And now my letters touch the top of the snowflake and the bottom of the snowflake. Now, if your name doesn't fit exactly here like mine does, there are some things you can do. You can change the font size, so you're changing it bigger or smaller. You can also change that letter space if you want your name to spread out a little more, or you might need to bring it in a little tighter. Or if, for example, your name was short, let me just make a copy here. Let's say my name was shorter. Then I could space those out like that. And maybe I bring a heart over here, and I make a copy and I make another heart over here, for example, kind of fill up that area. So this will take a little bit of playing around. So you can play with your font selection. You can play with the size of the letters. You can play with the spacing of the letters. And you can also play with the width and the height of the letters. Okay, so let me move these out of the way here. So if I wanted to use my original name, what I'm going to do is make sure that the top and the bottom of the name are touching just the edge of this medium blue snowflake layer. So the first thing I want to do is make sure I'm clicked on the name, which I am. I'm going to hold my Shift key and I'm going to select that snowflake again. Before I do anything, I'm going to click on Align and click Center horizontally. And that's going to make sure that my name is lined up in the middle of my snowflake. Now I do think I want to spread that out just a little bit to the edges, just so it fills that center area. And then let's align again. There we go. Now that I have my name selected and it's aligned, it's centered, I also have that medium blue layer selected. I'm going to click Combine and Weld, and see how that welds the name to the top and the bottom bar. So it's a different look than the other one, but it is kind of cool. So it's absolutely your choice what you want to do. Now let me just go back and I'll just show you quickly what to do if you wanted to use a smaller name with the little hearts. So I'm just going to drag those hearts, and I probably need to make them a tiny bit smaller. And I'll make a copy of that smaller one and paste it. Put that on that side. There we go. So you're going to want to make sure you have all your little shapes where you want them to be. And again, I'm going to click on the name, click on the heart, the other heart, and the snowflake. I'm holding my shift key on my keyboard so I can select all of them at once. Then combine and then weld. And there we go. That's what that one looks like. Okay, so I'm going to cut my original one here. So I'm just going to go back in time a little quickly. So now I'm back to my original artwork with just the name, and I can go ahead and delete these off of my canvas. Now I did want to mention, sometimes when you weld like this, you end up with little teeny tiny cutout shapes that you don't want to cut. And the way you can hide those is you can click on Contour, and Contour will show you all of these little teeny tiny shapes that are going to cut out. So if there's any very weird small shape that you don't like how it looks, you can either click on it here in the preview and it turns from dark to light. See that? Or you can click on it here in this little panel on the side, click on it, and then that also turns it from dark to light. Anything that's light, that you've turned light, it won't cut. Okay, let me turn those back on because I do want those to cut. There we go. But that's how you can get rid of any little weird things that happen when you weld. Okay, so this is all set to go. So we'll click the Make It button. We're cutting our materials on a mat. And we have our faux leather layer here, and we want to make sure we mirror that. And we also want to mirror our heat transfer vinyl layers because both of these materials cut in reverse. Now I'm going to go back to my faux leather layer, and I want to just separate my shapes a little bit away from each other and away from the edges. Same with this layer. And then finally with the name. Now, if you wanted to use permanent vinyl for this project, as I mentioned, then the only mat that you would mirror is the faux leather mat. The heat transfer vinyl mats are mirrored, permanent vinyl mats are not. But I'm using heat transfer vinyl. So all of my mats are mirrored. I'm going to click back here on my faux leather mat and click continue. So the faux leather mat, I will cut using the faux leather paper thin setting. If you don't have the setting bookmarked as a favorite like I do, you can click on Browse All Materials and search for it. Keep in mind, if you're using the Explore Air 2 machine, you'll need to turn your dial to custom before you can find this setting. So faux leather paper thin with more pressure. That's really important to help us get good cuts. And this is a reminder that we're just using that regular fine point blade. Now the other mats will cut using the manufacturer's recommended cut setting for the permanent vinyl or the heat transfer vinyl that you are using. Okay, let's hop back over to my overhead camera. We will get our mats cut out, and I'll show you very quickly how to assemble and glue our ornament. So I have my purple strong grip cutting mat and my white faux leather piece. I'm going to put this pretty side down on my purple strong grip mat. Right in that spot I saw that these shapes were going to cut in the mat preview screen. Now if I had a lot of extra faux leather down here, I would trim that off, but this piece is going to be fine. Now I'm going to apply blue painter's tape around to all the sides, and that's going to help keep this material from shifting while cutting. We have our material setting of faux leather paper thin with more pressure all ready to go. So we'll just load the mat into the machine and begin the cut. So the cut has run one time, and before I unload the mat, I want to take a sharp weeding tool and just lift up the edge of my cut to make sure that the cut went all the way through. If when I was lifting, if the little parts were sort of pulling back down, or there were some little threads keeping this material down on the mat, then I would want to repeat the cut. And to repeat the cut, you can just press that cut button again, and you can do that as many times as you'd like, as long as you haven't unloaded your mat. But these shapes look pretty good, so I'm going to unload my mat and remove my snowflake shapes. And remember, there is a little cutout hole at the top. If when you're trying to cut out your little hole, if the hole didn't cut all the way through, you can use curved scissors to help you trim up any little parts that are catching. But those look good. This was on a roll, so it's rolling up, but when we heat it up with our heat transfer vinyl and the heat press, then it'll flatten out. Now I'm going to return to Design Space and cut out my vinyl mats. And for the glitter heat transfer vinyl mat, I will repeat this cut at least one time because this is a pretty thick material. So I've weeded away the excess vinyl on my glitter heat transfer vinyl layer, and you could see how that impact font really does look nice with this snowflake design. It's just a very simple straight line font, and I think it's a really good one for this project. So I also have my other weeded vinyl layer, and I quickly just pressed my little faux leather snowflakes because they were curled as I showed you. I quickly just placed my little cover sheet on top of them and hit them with a few seconds of heat just to get them to flatten out. I also have my heavy book, which we're going to use after we glue the ornament together, and I also have a little bit of ribbon. Any ribbon you'd like is just fine. So I'm going to take one of my little faux leather snowflakes, and I'm going to take my first heat transfer vinyl layer and just place it, line it up with that little cutout hole at the top. Make sure that it's got a nice even border of the snowflake layer underneath all around. I have my Easy Press Mini set to the low setting. That's that first green line. If you're using a regular Easy Press, I would set it to about 265 degrees. And then I'm just going to cover with my cover sheet. So this is a large t-shirt size piece of Teflon sheet. That's why it's small, but you can use butcher paper or parchment paper, or you could use a larger Teflon sheet if that's what you have. I'm just going to cover this. My heat pressing pad is protecting my surface, and I'm just going to press for about 7 to 10 seconds all over. Then I'm going to put the heat aside, and I want to slowly try and peel back the clear carrier sheet on my heat transfer vinyl. And if it lifts up, see, like here it's lifting up, that means it's not ready. I'm going to place that right back down and cover and press some more. So now I'm going to try and peel again from a different direction. And that's good. There we go. Sometimes if you're pressing heat transfer vinyl onto faux leather and it seems like it's not sticking very well, then press it and let it just sit there and let it cool for about a minute before you try to peel it. Sometimes that helps. So now I'm just going to line up my glitter layer so that the name is sort of in that center white part. Again, you can use that little top cutout hole as a guide. And also all of these little glitter shapes should have a matching even outline around the sides. Once you have it where you like it, again, we'll just cover and press. Once again, we will slowly peel away this carrier sheet. That looks pretty good. Now I'm going to take this and just place it underneath my heat pressing pad for about a minute just to let it cool nice and flat. And while I do that, I'm going to place some glue on the back of my faux leather piece, the little ornament snowflake piece. So this is Fabri-Tac. I really like to use this glue, but you can use any good craft glue. You can use Barely Art glue, you can use art glitter glue, Aleene's you could use. I wouldn't recommend something like E6000 because that can be a little bit gloopy when you place it on. What I like about this is that it's going to spread very evenly. So do Barely Art glue and art glitter glue. So I would try those. I'm just going around the edges and all around inside of the shape here. I want to get close to the edge, but not all the way to the edge. I know it's a little hard to see, but you want to get glue around that hole too. Let me see if I can pick this up. You know, you probably won't be able to see that, but there's glue all over. So now I'm just going to take my front, pop it on, and then just take a moment lining up those edges with your fingers. You don't want to see any of the back shape sticking out when you're putting on the front shape. Now if you do, it's no big deal. If you really can't get them lined up, you can always trim your faux leather after. So don't stress about it too much. But now is definitely the time to try and get it shaped the way you want it. If any of the glue seeps out of the sides, just use a little paper towel and wipe it up. Now you'll notice when you look at the edge that the edge is not very tight yet. It's still a little bit open. And that's because we need to press this under our heavy book for at least an hour to get a really nice flat, almost seamless edge. That's the key to gluing faux leather front to back. It's not the type of glue you use, it's pressing it underneath a book for at least an hour. So I'm just going to do that, place that underneath my book. And I do have a matching ribbon, but I guess I don't need to show you how to do that. When your ornament is dried, then you can just tie your little ribbon, tie a little bow at the top if you would like. This one has a color coordinating piece of faux leather on the back, and like I said, you could add some optional vinyl, or you could write something with a Sharpie on the back if you wanted to. So here's another look at all of these snowflake ornaments together. I hope you like this project, and thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.